Hello, welcome to Mr. Brandt's 5th grade everyday math review. Today we're going over lesson 5.11, explaining the equivalent fraction rule. I'm going to start with the question. When you multiply, do you get a bigger answer or a smaller answer? Well, the answer is it depends. So if I have 6 times 1, 6 times 1 is 6. That gives me the same answer. If I do 6 times 2, that gives me 12. That gives me a bigger answer. If I do half of 6, if I find half of 6, which is the same thing as doing 1/2 times 6, okay? So half of 6, since this is a unit fraction, I can take 6 divided by 2, and that's 3. So half of 6 is the same as 1/2 times 6, which is the same as 3. If you notice, when you multiply a number by 1, you get the same answer. When you multiply a number by a number bigger than 1, you get a bigger answer. And if you multiply a number by a number less than 1, you get a smaller answer. So we want to focus on getting an equivalent answer, an equal answer. And in this case, we're going to be looking to find an equivalent fraction. Okay? So I'm going to repeat this one more time. To get the same or an equal number, you always multiply by 1. To get an equivalent fraction, you also have to multiply by 1, but in the form of a fraction. So if I have the fraction 2/3 and I want to get an equivalent fraction, I have to multiply it by 1, but I'm going to multiply it in the form of a fraction. So 1 as a fraction is where the numerator and the denominator are the same thing. So if I take 2/3 times 4/4, which we've done a lot in the last few lessons, we learned that multiplying the numerators together would give you the shaded portion, so that would be 8. Multiplying the denominators together give you the total number of sections in a whole. So 2/3 times 4/4 is 8/12. If I drew a picture here, okay, and I shaded that in, that's 2/3. Now if I change that to 12ths, the orange doesn't work the greatest. Hopefully that you can see that all right. But now, changing that to 12ths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I didn't change how much was there. I just changed the size of the pieces. So now I have an equivalent fraction represented, and that's 8/12. So we can think about this fraction being the number 1. So 2/3 times 1 is 2/3. Or if I want an equivalent fraction, 2/3 times 4/4, or 4/4, is 8/12. The next fraction I want you to think about is 3/5. And with those 3/5, let's say that I wanted to change that to an equivalent fraction where the denominator was 15. So I have to multiply by 1 to get an equivalent fraction. Okay, I have to multiply by 1. And in order to get a denominator of 15, what am I going to have to multiply by? Well, 5 times 3 is 15. And we've learned whatever you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator. So if 5 times 3 is 15, 3 times 3 is 9. So 3/5 is equivalent to 9/15. So I multiplied by 1. I have the same amount, just different size pieces. Another way, and I didn't do this on the previous one, some of you might be writing your problems like this. 3 times 3 over 5 times 3 to get your equivalent fraction, and that's a perfectly acceptable way to write them as well. the last part of the top part of your home link, they're asking you, they give you a problem, and it's kind of similar to this. They say, so you've got a fraction that's 2/5. You want to find an equivalent fraction. And you want that, you want the equivalent fraction to have a denominator of 10. Okay, you want it to be a denominator of 10. So they say, well, you multiply that by 2, and then 2/5 times 2 is 2/10, because 5 times 2 is 10, and now you have an equivalent fraction. Is that true? Well, we know that in order to get an equivalent fraction, you have to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 2, not just the denominator. So in order to make an equivalent fraction, it would have to be 2/5 times 1 in the form of a fraction, 2/2, which would be 4/10. Okay? So this is the correct way. This is incorrect, because we talked a lot about this today. Multiplying by 1 gives you an equivalent fraction. For the for the practice problems today, they're asking you to find the fraction of a number. And we've gone over a couple of different strategies of doing that. But for today, I'm going to take you back to that unit fraction, finding the unit fraction. So a unit fraction is where you have a 1 over the denominator. So in this case, it'd be 1/4. So if we were going to find 1/4 of 12, we would take the whole number and divide it by the denominator. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. And I shouldn't have put this equal sign in there. So 1/4 of 12 is 3. Once you find that unit fraction, then you can multiply that by the numerator. So 3 times 3 is 9. So 3/4 of 12 is 9.